All right, so welcome everybody. I really appreciate you stopping by. We're going to take a look at the new Ansi standards in as it relates to Sketchit. Okay, so we're going to be using Appraiser Pro for this. However, this is the same in Appraiser Classic if you're still using Appraiser Classic. However, I would recommend that you try out Appraiser Pro. We actually do later on today, and this is something I do want to show you why I have you guys as a captured audience here. But if we go to our website, go to training, use mouse over training, go to the training calendar, you'll see the upcoming trainings that we have. And at 1 o'clock Eastern time today, we do have an Introduction to Appraiser Pro course. So if you see Appraiser Pro and you're kind of interested in it, feel free to join us for that. You should have received an email along with the email about this webinar earlier today at about 8 a.m. Eastern time. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and get started by opening up Appraiser Pro. Take just a second here. I just booted up my computer, so it takes a second to launch, and it's all happening on my other screen here. There we go. So here's Appraiser Pro. What we're going to do for this webinar is I'm just going to open up a blank 1004, just the run-of-the-mill 1004. Now this webinar is not going to take very long. What I have to show you doesn't take very long at all. I'm going to go to Tools, and I'm going to select Sketchit. Now, the Ansi standards, let me pull this over here. What we've been getting questions from you guys about in relation to the Ansi standards is kind of twofold. One, does Sketchit support showing and doing measurements in tenths of a foot? The answer to that is most certainly yes. And as a matter of fact, Sketchit out of the box will already convert any measurements that you input into it into tenths of a foot. So it's already ANSI standardized, mainly because we used to sell, and we still do sell Sketchit to real estate agents, and real estate agents have been using the ANSI standards forever now. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to draw a real quick exterior sketch. So we'll just do it. And by the way, if you don't know how to use Sketchit, we do have a video on that. And if you still have some questions about using Sketchit after watching the video, feel free to email me training@sfarep.com and we can work something out to do some one-on-one training on Sketchit, okay? So I'm going to create a living area here, first floor. All right, so I'm just going to, and of course, it doesn't matter where you put your hash, your crosshair, because we can center the sketch afterwards. So I'm just going to, I always like to do it in clockwise. So I'm going to start in the upper left-hand corner. I'm going to hit enter to drop my pen. We're going to go 50 feet to the right, enter to lock it in. We're going to go 60 feet down, enter to lock it in. And here's where I'm going to kind of show you that there are multiple ways to enter measurements in Sketchit. One of the ways is in tenths of a foot, but you can also just enter it in feet and inches. And the way you do that is I'm going to go over 55.5 feet to the left. So what I'm going to do, and I can't show you, like I can't use my mouse right now, but watch the lower left-hand corner just above the start button. You'll see what I'm entering. So we're going to do 5, and then for the foot, we're going to use the apostrophe. So 5 feet, or excuse me, let's back that up. 50 feet, there we go. And then we're going to go, let's try that again. 55 feet, and then we're going to go 6 inches, and the inches is the apostrophe, of course. And we're going to hit to the left. So that's 55, I think I did that right, 55 feet, 6 inches, hit enter, and there we go. Yeah, there we go, 55.5. So it's taken, even though I gave the input as feet and inches, it's automatically converted it for me into tenths of a foot. And by the way, that's what it means by tenths of a foot. So now we're going to come up 30 feet to the top, to the north or up, hit enter, lock it in. And now I'm going to come back in, and this time I'm going to go 5.5 feet, because I'm going to use decimal in this case. There we go. And then we'll come up 30 feet. And there we go. There's our sketch. There is our sketch. So I'm going to center it by using the little center sketch button here. All right. So in this case, we're going to pretend, we're going to make a couple assumptions here. This up here, this part right up here, this is a barn type part of the structure. Okay. So I know this is the first floor. Let's pretend like this is the second floor. Okay. So on the second floor, we have a sloping roof that is coming down all the way to the floor. Now, ANSI standards say that in a room, in order for that room to be counted as gross living area, the room has to have a ceiling height of at least 7 feet. Anything below that, if there is a 6-foot ceiling height, like a little hobbit room, that doesn't get to be counted under square footage. And yes, you are going to probably get a lot of angry sellers and lenders and stuff because of this. Not a lot, but you may get some, so just be prepared for that. Because you're going to be, they're going to feel like you're cheating them out of square footage, but you're not. So the ceiling has to be at least 7 feet for it to be counted. And if it has a sloped wall that slopes down from the ceiling, like in a barn type house, then at least half of that room has to have a ceiling that's at least 7 feet. So if less than half of the room, if only a third of the room has a ceiling height of 7 feet, then that doesn't get counted as square footage. Okay. So in this case, more than half of the room has a 7-foot ceiling, but it does slope down at an angle. And when that slope reaches a point where the ceiling is 5 feet or less above the floor, then everything past that to the end of the slope doesn't get counted as square footage. So how are you going to show that on a sketch? So what we're going to do, there's a couple of ways you can do this, but this is the kind of the way that I've developed, and I'll show you. There are other ways to do it, but this is kind of the easiest way, I think. Definitely the easiest to understand. So I'm going to create another area because I do need to make changes to the square footage of the house. So I do need to create an area. In this case, I'm going to come over here and make this area negative. And I'm going to turn off exterior dimension, the little labels for the exterior dimensions, okay? And I like to fill this area in so it definitely shows up as being a different area. So I'm going to use the little pull down here, and I like to use this little light gray shading. And we're going to click on create. Now, I'm going to show you a little keyboard shortcut that I bet a lot of you don't know about. If you take your crosshair and you put it, and by the way, for those of you who are arriving a little bit late, we are recording this session, so you will be able to watch the whole session later on. I'm going to post it to our Facebook group, the Appraiser Exchange Facebook group. I'm also going to post it to YouTube, okay? So I'm going to move the crosshair so that it is near the corner here. And then if I hit J on my keyboard, that stands for jump, and it's going to jump to the nearest point. All right, so now it's jumped to the corner point here. I'm going to hit enter to drop my pen. I'm going to go 5 feet to the right, hit enter to lock it in. Now I'm overwriting a line. That's fine. Don't worry about that. Now we're going to come down 30 feet down, enter to lock it in. We're going to go 5 feet over, and then we're going to go 30 feet up. So essentially what I'm saying here is that from this point, for the last 5 feet of the slope, it is below 5 feet. And so this area has now been subtracted from the square footage of the house, because remember, I put the calculations as negative instead of positive. So I'm going to do the same thing over here. Once again, living area, we're going to change it from positive to negative because we're subtracting square footage. And I'm going to turn off exterior dimensions. And like I said, I like to have the fill type with this little light gray here to denote it. We'll hit create. And then once again, J, enter drops our pen. We're going to go 5 feet to the left. We're going to go 30 feet down. We're going to go 5 feet to the right, hit enter to lock it in, and then we're going to go 30 feet up, enter to lock it in, and there we go. Now, of course, you're going to want to put some comments onto your report as to what's going on here, because believe me, they're going to question it. And if I've learned anything in being in this industry for the last 17 years, it's that lenders and AMCs and people like that, they don't keep up with stuff quite as much as you guys do. Okay, so what we're gonna do here is, so they're you're gonna get into Monday and they're not gonna know why you've put this stuff here. Okay, so just explain to them and say they need to do their homework. So now we're gonna create some text here, because what I want to do is I want to label this area so that people know what it is. All right, so we're gonna create text, and the text I want to put in here is I don't know, less than 5 feet. You can pick out what you want to put in here. So we'll just say less than 5 feet. We'll hit OK. And now I can't really fit that in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the R key on my keyboard, and I'm going to rotate that text and pop it in. I'm going to do the same thing again for the other side. I'm going to rotate it all the way around, pop that in there, and now it's labeled and I'm done labeling, so I'm gonna hit cancel. Now you may, in this case, want to put at least one interior wall in, if not draw all the interior walls, just to say that this is a room. So if you want to add interior walls, I know a lot of people don't do interior walls, but this is the way you do interior walls. We're going to come up here, mouse over this. You see it says create lines. So line is what we want to do. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. Once again, I'm going to use the J key to jump to this little corner. Enter, I'm going to drop my pen. In this case, I'm just going to use my arrow keys to come out here to the end point here. I'm going to hit enter to lock it in, and then I hit enter a second time to pick up my pen. And now I have drawn an interior wall. But now we need a way to get into this room. So I'm going to come back up here and I'm going to select create icons, and see how you move over these, it'll give you a little tooltip. So we're going to create icon. I'm going to come down here, find door left. I don't like 2.5. I think that's a small door, so I'm going to make it 3 feet. Hit OK. And now I'm going to mouse over this wall here, and there's my door. I'm going to put a second one in because it's a big room. So put a second one in right here. So now I hit cancel because I'm done. So now we have the room, and it is these areas right here that are shaded. They have been removed from the square footage of the house. Now, the other thing that we do get a lot of questions on is our bay windows. So there's basically kind of 2 types of bay windows, and you guys know this. There's the bay window that's more of kind of an alcove where the floor actually goes all the way out into the protrusion out of the house. And then you might have a bay window that has a seat, like a little seating area. So Ansi says that if the floor doesn't go all the way over to the edge of the window, then it doesn't count as square footage. So if it has like a seat or a raised area or a ledge or anything like that, then that won't get counted. So how, previously you might have shown on the exterior of the house drawing, the little protrusion there. So how are we going to do a protrusion without subtracting or adding to the square footage of the house? We're going to go back to create lines. And here's a little trick for you if you didn't know this. I'm going to do the jump here again. If I don't drop my pen, I can actually do measurements along a wall to scale in the drawing. So if I know that this bay window starts 8 feet from the corner of the house, what I can do without dropping my pen is go 8 to the left. Now I can hit enter to drop my pen. And I'm going to do a rise and run. So we'll do 5 up, 5 over to do a 45-degree angle. Then we're going to go 10 feet to the left. And then we're going to go 5 over, 5 down, enter, and then enter again. So remember, lines don't change the square footage of the house. And now we have done a little outline of a bay window that does not change the square footage of the house. And you can do that with a sunroom or something like that as well. Now, the other thing that we get a lot of calls on has to do with stairs. Once again, remember, I'm just a schmuck who's read a PDF. Okay, so I think I've pretty much got the handle on what Ansi says, but you really should take a class, a continuing education class, and make sure that you understand it. And I would encourage you to actually go out and buy the PDF. I think it's like 25 bucks. And we're going to put a link to it in our Appraiser Exchange. Actually buy the PDF, okay? And then make sure you read it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to create icon. So here's the deal. The way that you used to do, remember, we're assuming this is the second floor. The way that you used to do a staircase was that staircase would remove square footage from the second floor of the house. That's how most people did it. So there's actually an area. So if you go over here to create area, and you selected non-calculated area and you selected stairs horizontal, then you could, take or remove square footage. What I recommend you do now is actually use an icon, because Ansi states that a stairwell, basically, when you do it from the second floor, you're going to have a hole where and I hate using that word, but that's what it is. You're going to have a big hole where the stairwell goes. And that would generally not be counted as square footage for the second floor. However, what Ansi states is that you can use the square footage of the steps and any landings up to the size of the hole. So you can essentially fill in the hole. So a stairwell is not going to change the square footage of the second floor, because anything up to that hole is going to be included as square footage on the first floor or on the second floor, and then anything that's left over, landings or anything that are beyond that, the size of that hole, are going to be counted for square footage for the first floor. So a stairwell is not going to change the square footage of the house. So you can use a icon, and if you go down here, there is an icon for stairs. Now, this is a little bit, what I'm going to tell you, this is just kind of a weird thing with Sketchit. This says width and length, reverse these, okay? So in our case, we're going to put the length as 6 feet, and we're going to put the width as 4 feet, okay? I think I have this right. Let's see. I do not. So see, I did it wrong. So let's try that again. We're going to create icon. You can tell I haven't used Sketchit in a while. 6 feet for the width, and then 4 feet for the length. So that's gonna sound weird, but you'll see why that's gonna work in a second. We hit OK, and there we go. Now it looks correct. All right. So now it's 6 feet by 4 feet. I'm gonna use the R to rotate it around, and I'm gonna put my stairwell right here, and I hit cancel. So now I've added the icon for the stairwell, but because we're not losing or gaining any square feet from the stairs, I'm just gonna put it as an icon, and there we go. So like I said, this is not a webinar on the ANSI standards. I've read the document. I believe I understand it. I've been to at least one webinar on this, but really make sure that you guys get some continuing education. I think the Appraisal Institute is doing an online class on it, and I'm going to be linking to that in the Appraiser Exchange as well. And if you do not know what the Appraiser Exchange is, what you're going to do is you're going to want to go to Facebook. We all have Facebook accounts. You're going to want to go to Facebook, and then you're going to do a search for SFREP Appraiser Exchange. And what that is a Facebook group just for our customers, where you can talk to other appraisers who use our software, and you can talk to us as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to post some links later on today to both the PDF that you can buy straight from Ansi, and to I'm gonna try to get the link to the Appraisal Institute class on this so you can take that as well. But remember that all this goes into effect tomorrow. So hopefully you've had some classes on it already. All right, so if you have any questions, I'll be happy to take them. Just use the little chat bubble icon that is in the GoToMeeting interface, and you can chat the questions to me. If you come up with a question later on, or if you're watching this webinar in a pre-recorded version, you can feel free to email me, matt@sfrep.com or training@sfrep.com, and I'll be glad to answer those questions. So Jen says, can you go over the feet and inches again? So say measurement is 25 feet 2 inches, how would you enter that? So the way you would do that, let me create another area here. The way that you would do that, Jen, is I'm going to drop my pen, and if it's 20 feet 2 inches, I could enter that as 20 with an apostrophe, and look in the lower left-hand corner just above the start menu, you'll see how I've typed that in. 20 feet apostrophe, because that is the shorthand for feet. And then I can do 2 apostrophe quote, which is the shorthand for inches. And then I'll go to the left, hit enter, and there we go. 22, it's 20 feet 2 inches when it gets converted into tenths of a foot instead of feet and inches. I'm gonna cancel that. Let's see, E says, is the stairwell counted on the first floor? The part of the stairwell that is, I guess you could think of it as this part of the stairwell that is immediately below the hole in the floor of the second floor, that gets counted, any steps or landings, that gets counted on the second floor. Anything else above and beyond that gets counted for the first floor. So essentially it's a wash, because it's gonna be, the square foot is gonna be either, you know, it's a wash when it comes to the total gross living area of the house. I guess what you could do, yeah, it would be a wash. So it's not going to affect the square footage of the second floor or of the first floor. That's already counted. So you don't need to make any adjustments for it being negative or positive, because it's not going to affect the square footage. Hopefully that makes sense. So the hole basically gets filled in. Anyone else have any other questions? Jen, you can. I'm not going to go over. We have a video. If you go to our either our website or you go to our YouTube account, which is it's youtube.com/sfrep, then you can actually see a video there where we go over all that stuff. I just don't want to get into it right now. If you want, you can email me training@sfrep.com and I can do a one-on-one with you. Okay. Rick says, my understanding is it gets counted on both floors. That's not the way I read it, but once again, I'm a schmuck who read a PDF. So take anything I say with a grain of salt. But the way I understood it in the PDF is that the square footage that counts up to the hole, the size of the hole in the floor for the stairs, that gets counted for the second floor, and then the rest of the square footage goes to the first floor, which would make sense, So essentially, it just becomes a wash, and you just don't have to worry about subtracting or adding square footage based on the stairs. But I could be wrong, Rick. I don't know. Like I said, I just read a PDF. That would be definitely a question to ask in your continuing education, but as I understand it, that's the way it is. Only vaulted ceilings are removed from the second floor. No, it would be if you have like an open to below. So you know how like a loft area, and so the loft area would be on the second floor, and then there's like a big old hole and it goes down into like the living room. That would be subtracted. Yeah. And I think, so yeah, I think you're correct on that. So vaulted ceilings would not necessarily. So what we're talking about are ceilings, if I'm understanding what you're saying correctly, is ceilings that are extending from the ceiling, or excuse me, walls that are extending from the ceiling down to the floor. Usually it'd be an exterior wall, and usually be a kind of a barn style house where the second floor kind of tapers in and is part of the roof. So one of the exterior walls is actually part of the roof. And so you would have a slope from the ceiling down all the way to the floor. So anything under 5 feet on that slope. So you count everything until you get to the point where it's less than 5 feet from the floor to the ceiling. And then from there all the way to the end of the slope where the wall, where the wall meets the floor, that would not be counted as square footage. And it, honestly, guys, you are going to get some, I don't know what form it's going to take, but you're probably going to get some blowback, especially from sellers who think they're getting cheated out of square footage. But that's the whole point of Ansi. So we're all measuring it exactly the same. Mark says, Matt, I believe a better way to explain how to handle an open area for stairs on the second floor is to just create a negative area for the hole on the second floor after you have drawn the house exterior. Essentially, we only need to include areas that have floors. You got to read that Ansi document, because according to Ansi, they count the stairs that add up to stairs and landings that add up to the square footage that's lost from the hole in the floor. They use that to fill in the hole, essentially. So that is part of the Ansi standards. As I've read them, once again, take anything I say with a grain of salt. I'm not an expert on this. I read a PDF, but that is the way that I interpreted the PDF that I read. So Mark, if I'm wrong, let me know. But as far as I understand, that's the way it is. Someone that doesn't have your name on here, my understanding is that the interior walls are not required, but are the door icons required for entry points into the house? I don't think they're required, and I don't know. I'm not an appraiser, so I don't know when interior walls are required and when they aren't. And I did not read anything about that in the Ansi standards. What they did say, though, was that if you use architectural drawings or to gather this information, like I guess if it's a desktop or something like that, then you do need to comment that that's how you came up with the measurements for your sketch. And then also, if you only measure the outside of the house because you can't gain entry into the house, then you need to say that you measured the outside and that's how you got the square footage of the house. It just talks about commenting. E says 2-story entryways. I'm not sure what you mean. What I'm saying here is that we're pretending this is the second floor and these are just doorways into the room. Yeah, because I did put a wall here, so I gotta show a way to go in there. But you know, I talked to Wayne about this, and Wayne really wanted me to also show you guys how you can do interior walls and icons. So that's what we're showing you there. Jay says, I always subtract the stairs from the second floor. Whoops. I always subtract the stairs from the second floor. So now I don't have to do that. I missed some due to the phone calls. As I read it, yes, Jay. But remember, I'm not an expert on this, and this is not continuing education. You're not getting CE credit for this, and I'm not an expert. So just keep that in mind. But as I read the document, yes, stairway, you're essentially recovering any lost square footage from the stairway by the stairs and landings themselves. Okay. Alfonso says, when creating a garage, I believe the calculations must be shown. I think, does that occur? I do not know the answer to that, Alfonso. I would, but I don't remember reading that requirement in the Ansi document. I could have read over it, but I was mainly concentrating on the parts that had to do with the sketch. But doesn't hurt to show, I guess. Mark says, maybe it wasn't clear enough. Stairs are definitely included on both floors. However, if there is an open area without a floor on the second floor adjacent to the stairs, it needs to be deducted. Yeah, that's a tough one. The way I guess I read it, I mean, if there is addition, yeah, if there's nothing, if there are not stairs under that area, then yeah. So if you have stairs, yeah, I guess that would make sense. I'm kind of thinking of it in relation to my house. But yeah, if there's a big open area, then the stairs can get counted for the second floor up to and including their footprint that you're losing. But the open area would not. That makes sense to me, Mark. E says, need to deduct from the second floor. It needs to be, yeah, I mean, an open area will be deducted from the second floor, but the footprint of the stairs does not. Mitzi says, is Ansi requiring porches, patios, etc. to be drawn on the sketch? They mentioned them in the PDF that I read, but they don't say if it's required. I would put them on the sketch, but I don't believe they said that they're required. They mentioned sunrooms, because sunrooms are one of those things where sometimes sunrooms have heating and sometimes they don't. And if they, as I understood it, once again, Schumacher read a PDF. If the sunroom has heating, then yes, include it. If it doesn't, then you don't need to include it. And because it doesn't count towards the square footage of the house. But I don't think they changed anything in those requirements. Let's see. Dennis says, I've noticed with Sketchit that the measurements are rounded to the nearest half foot. Is there a way in settings to make it more precise to the nearest inch or tenth of a foot for the ANSI standards? It does not round to the nearest half foot. It will round to, because I just showed that with Jen. It will convert, if you enter your measurements in feet and inches, then it will convert to foot and tenths of a foot for you automatically. And then it'll do rounding. I believe it rounds if it's 6 or more, it goes up. If it's 5 or less, it goes down. Or no, 5 or more, it goes up. 4 or less, it goes down. Leonard says, you count the square footage on the level the descending stairs start. As I understand that, Leonard, that is correct until you quote unquote fill in that hole. So you can count the square footage of the hole where the stairs are to the second floor until you have filled in that hole with square footage, and then anything other than that gets counted on the first floor. That's the way I understood it. Once again, schmuck with a PDF. Jay says, does ANSI give additional guidance on converting interior dimensions to exterior dimensions? Not going to speak to that. Once again, I'm not qualified to teach a course on ANSI. I would very much encourage you to do a continuing education on that. I'm going to put a link in our Appraiser Exchange Facebook group to a class that you can take with the Appraisal Institute. I don't know the answer to that question, and I'm pretty schmuck with a PDF. I'm not qualified to answer it. I'm sorry, Jay. Hopefully I'm saying your name right. Leonard says, we've been using this method for 40 plus years. Yeah, for the most part. And real estate agents have been using the ANSI standard, and of course commercial appraisers have been using the, what's it called, BOLO, or starts with a B. They've been using their own standard for like 100 years, over 100 years now. So, now appraisers are catching up. And of course, what Ansi wants, and if you don't know who Ansi is, they're kind of a standards making body for North America. You know, they're right. You know, they want, you know, if a real estate agent goes out and measures a property, if a appraiser goes out and measures a property, you know, if a county official goes out and measures a property, they should all be very close to each other in square footage. And so if you have a standard on how you're supposed to do it, then it alleviates confusion. Kathleen says, can you show us how to add a non-calculated area open to the first floor? For example, a cathedral ceiling. So that would actually, there would be a calculation there because you would be subtracting square footage from the second floor, if I'm understanding your question correctly. So in that case, what you would do is you'd actually create an area. It would be living area. We're pretending this is the second floor. And then it would be a negative. And then we would remove, you could do dimensions if you want. I think it looks cleaner to remove them, to not show the dimension labels. That's these right here. Create, and then let's say we'll drop the pen and we'll do maybe 20 feet to the right, 20 feet down, 20 feet to the left, and then 20 feet there. So now what I've done is I've basically created a hole that's open to below. And that has been, this area right here has been removed from the square footage calculation of the second floor. Richard says, real estate agents have no clue about Ansi. They are definitely not using it. They are supposed to. That is my understanding, that real estate agents, when they measure a house, they're supposed to adhere to Ansi standards. Now, I mean, frankly, I kind of agree with you, but you know, it's what they're supposed to do. Rather, if that's actually done in practice, who knows? But hopefully they're doing it that way. The what you see in the MLS should match what you have and what county records have. That's the goal. Anybody have any other questions? All right. If you have a question that you can't get in right now or that you think of later, training@sfrep.com or matt@sfrep.com. I'll be happy to answer them for you. Of course, if you have some immediate concerns, contact our tech support and they'll be able to help you out. I gave them this same training yesterday, so they should now be up to speed. And we're going to be buying that Ansi PDF and distributing it, showing it to everybody in the company. So hopefully everybody's going to be on the same page about that. But if for some reason you don't think you're getting the right answer, email me directly and I will get you the right answer. All right. Will you be doing a webinar for this for Apex Sketch Program? No, Apex does their own webinars. Apex handles their own tech support. So if you go to their website, I'm sure they've done something to show all this. I will say this though, we figured out how to do sketching programs a long time ago. So just go ahead and most of what I've just shown you here, you can apply to Apex as well. The way you do it, the interface is going to be a little bit different, but the concept's going to be the same. All right, guys, hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and we will talk to you soon. If you want to learn more about Appraiser Pro, don't forget that at, let's look, because I've already forgotten. If you go to training calendar, just mouse over training, go down to training calendar. I have a webinar on that at 1 p.m. Eastern time today. So just look in your email box, you'll have a link. You don't have to sign up. You join it just like you did this one. Y'all have a great afternoon.